I am Jade, married for 3 years, living with my loving husband. Despite our strong bond, we hadn't yet been blessed with children, and we both eagerly anticipated the day we would. However, that all changed due to an unexpected incident. Please allow me to share this astonishing story. My husband's kindness extended not only to me but to everyone around him, earning the admiration of my parents as well. I have a sister who is a career-focused woman, and surprisingly, my husband had a good rapport with her, despite her sole focus on work. However, his workload suddenly intensified, leading to late nights and even working on his days off. He had been entrusted with a team's leadership role, keeping his phone constantly in hand to stay connected with his colleagues. In hindsight, one might have found this behavior suspicious, but I chose to worry solely about his well-being, not suspecting anything amiss. Then my sister, who lived independently in her own apartment, made the decision to relocate due to her new job. She needed furniture for her new place, so I offered to drive her to the store in my car. On the designated Saturday for our shopping trip, I received an urgent call from my boss, requiring me to come into the office. Unfortunately, this was the only day my sister had off. As I pondered my dilemma, I realized that my husband coincidentally had the day off as well. Despite his recent hectic work schedule, I decided to ask him to cover for me. Understanding the predicament I was in, he agreed to help. He joked about the awkwardness of being alone with my sister, but reassured me it was all right. Since my car was currently in the repair shop, he asked if he could borrow it. I was grateful for his offer, which allowed me to address the pressing issue at my office. This marked the first time my husband and sister would spend time together alone. As the day progressed, I couldn't help but wonder how they were faring, whether they found the perfect furniture, and more. Once my work issues were resolved, I realized it was evening and attempted to reach my husband and sister on my cell phone. That's when an unfamiliar number lit up my screen. With apprehension, I answered, "Hello? Am I speaking to John's family member?" The voice on the other end identified themselves as a police officer and delivered the shocking news that my husband had been in an accident. The officer explained that my husband's car had been involved in a collision, leaving both him and his female passenger unconscious. I can't recall exactly how I reacted upon receiving this news, but I vividly remember rushing to the hospital. Upon my arrival, I provided my name to the emergency receptionist and was directed to the ITU. Through the glass window, I saw my husband connected to various tubes and wrapped in bandages, sending waves of anxiety through me. Eventually, my mother, who lived far away, reached the hospital, and together we endured an anxious night. Amidst our apprehension, the police officer shared the details of the accident. He explained that John had been driving on a road with clear visibility when another car ran a red light and collided with his. The other driver was severely injured and was also being treated at the same hospital. However, the other driver claimed that John's car had been behaving strangely before the accident, leaving the police to investigate the possibility that my husband had fallen asleep at the wheel. In the days that followed, both my husband and sister regained consciousness, and the doctors conducted various tests. My mother and I were summoned to hear the test results, which delivered the news that while they would survive, they would likely face some form of disability. Nonetheless, my mother and I found solace in the fact that they had survived, holding on to the hope that rehabilitation would lead to some improvement. We chose not to burden them with the possibility of lasting disabilities, offering only positive words of encouragement and dedicated care. My mother assumed the role of caregiver for my sister, while I attended to my husband. The accident had left my husband in a state of shock, both physically and emotionally. His well-being deteriorated, and he carried a heavy burden of guilt for the trouble he believed he had caused me, my mother, and my sister. However, as time passed, a noticeable change began to emerge in him. Frustration brewed within him, stemming from his impaired leg mobility, the rigors of hospital treatment, and the necessity to abandon his job. This frustration took hold of him, and he struggled to control it. Despite the challenges, I continued to visit the hospital, driven by my understanding of his ordeal and my unwavering desire to support him. One day, a police detective arrived at the hospital with new information regarding the accident. It appeared that the brake oil in my car had played a role in the collision, leaking and potentially setting the stage for an accident, even if it hadn't happened at that moment. This revelation hinted at why the car had exhibited strange behavior before the crash. The woman who collided with my car was also in poor condition, and her mother came to apologize. Meeting her for the first time, I couldn't help but feel a growing resentment for my husband. He resented my immobility while he suffered from his own physical limitations. He also seemed irritated that my work schedule restricted the time I could spend at the hospital. His frustration escalated, leading to incessant demands, outbursts of anger when I couldn't meet them, and even physical aggression, such as throwing objects and complaining relentlessly about his hospital room. Although I empathized with this situation, I had no choice but to work to support our financial needs. My responsibilities multiplied, including liaising with the police and managing communication with the hospital, leaving me with no time to breathe. My husband's attitude became increasingly unbearable, and I felt cornered by his behavior. My sister appeared to be experiencing a similar mental state, while my mother's exhaustion grew more apparent. I heard that my sister had placed even greater demands on my mother, who had no job and was dealing with her own challenges. In times when I couldn't make it to the hospital, it seemed that both my husband and my sister harbored resentment, believing that their conditions would remain paralyzed despite rehabilitation. Then the issue of my car's brake oil leak resurfaced. My sister confronted me, saying, "Hey, I heard your car was leaking oil. You were responsible for your car's maintenance. I can't work, and I can't recover my body because of it. Mom looks irritated, and your husband is in the same condition. You are responsible for taking care of me and your husband for the rest of your life." Her blame hit me hard, leaving me stunned. I immediately called my mother, who revealed that my sister had been in this fragile mental state for a while. Despite my mother's fatigue, I continued to be concerned about my husband and went to the hospital. However, when I entered his hospital room, he was not there. I found him and my sister together in the common room as visiting hours were drawing to a close. They sat alone, their hushed conversation dominating the otherwise empty space. Words were exchanged, and my husband's anger was palpable as he said, "Hey, I heard that if you had taken the car in for inspection, all of this might not have happened." He glared at me. My response was swift. "Yeah, but you are the reason why your sister and I are in this mess. The insurance will cover it, and you're going to have to take care of us for the rest of your lives. Remember that?" Something inside me snapped at that moment. I couldn't help but question the newfound closeness between my husband and my sister. "Since when are you two so close?" I asked incredulously. He replied defensively, "What do you mean? You don't come over that often. Your mom even texted your sister to say she could come for a while. Since we both can't leave this place and can't walk, what's wrong with talking to your husband?" My husband and my sister appeared to be forming an alliance against me. I couldn't help but inject sarcasm into my words as I questioned their newfound closeness. "I know, right? You guys hadn't seen each other for a long time before the day of the accident, right?" I probed, trying to make them understand my perspective. My husband chose to ignore my question, and my sister didn't even acknowledge my presence. However, when my husband declared that my sister would take care of them both for the rest of their lives, she silently nodded in agreement. Despite their silence, I persisted in expressing my feelings, hoping they might grasp the weight of my emotions. "I wonder if the person whose car hit you is getting better now," I ventured. My husband's response was dismissive. "How should I know? She ran into us when the traffic light was red. It's just unbelievable." "That's right, you can't imagine how scary it was. We really need to make sure we can get some compensation from her. And I was so close to getting a promotion too if I didn't cut in." The continuous complaints from both of them pushed me to a breaking point. I decided it was time to reveal a crucial piece of information. "There's something I need to let you know," I began. My husband inquired, "What is it?" I went on. "First of all, I had my car inspected before the accident." "Did you?" My sister chimed in. "Then the dealer should be sued. There's no way they didn't notice the brake oil was leaking." "I know, right?" I continued with the revelation. "So you know, right after the accident, the police called me. They wanted to know what the cause of the accident was, so they asked if they could take a look at my drive recorder. But that old drive recorder doesn't record any sound, and it also doesn't start recording until after the accident, so you can't get anything out of it." My sister's face grew pale as I continued. "You didn't know that I had gotten a new drive recorder." Her surprised reaction was evident. I added, "I also installed another camera for the inside of the car. You know, the recorders nowadays can start recording with even a slight shake of the car. The police contacted me and they said they had seen the data." My husband appeared confused and my sister was on the verge of collapse. I confronted her directly, saying, "You were up to something, correct?" My husband panicked and exclaimed, "What? What do you mean?" I retorted, "You did something to the car." My husband, now in a state of distress, was unable to respond. Taking charge of the situation, I continued, "Oh, do you address my sister like that? You talk to her as if she were your girlfriend." My husband fell silent, seemingly paralyzed by the revelation. I pressed on. I told you earlier that a slight vibration would start the recording, and so many intimate scenes between the two of you were recorded. I was so embarrassed when the police asked me. Realization dawned on my husband, and his face drained of color. I confronted them both, declaring, "You guys had been having an affair all this time. You had been completely fooled." My husband, at a loss for words, began to blame my sister. However, at that moment, the mother of the woman who had crashed into my car arrived at the hospital room, a visit I had arranged. Addressing my sister, I said, "Don't you have anything to say to her?" My sister was taken aback by the unexpected presence of the tearful woman. I introduced her, saying, "Whoa, who's this?" "She's the mother of the woman who crashed into you. She should be the one paying for all this." My husband fell silent upon hearing this. I reiterated, "She's the mother of the woman who crashed into you. She's also the mother of the woman who was your victim. Her name is Aria. I'm sure you know who she is." My husband's face turned even paler upon hearing Aria's name. My sister, too, began to panic. She demanded answers. "What? What is this? Do you know the woman who was driving the car? That means they knew it was your car, and she crashed into it? Who is she?" Seeing that my husband was incapable of responding, I took it upon myself to reveal the truth to my sister. She was having an affair with John. He had told her that he would get a divorce soon, but he didn't. So when Aria lied to him that she had gotten pregnant with his baby, John told her to get an abortion. After that, she couldn't get in touch with John, and she wanted to hurt me because she wanted to take revenge. My sister groaned, realizing the gravity of the situation. I emphasized, "Wait, so that means, right, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I can't believe I let something like this ruin my life." The harsh reality sank in, and my sister had no words to offer. I concluded, the reality is that there is nothing you can do about it, no matter how much you cry or how much you scream. With utmost sincerity, I made my feelings known. Also, it's not as though this happened to a completely innocent person. I held nothing back, ensuring they both understood the gravity of their actions. I put all my feelings into my words. "Now you understand what happened. You two were having an affair behind my back, and Mary was trying to get me injured or dead by tweaking the brake oil of my car. However, she ultimately got herself involved in the accident by driving the car herself. In this situation, I considered myself the victim. I had initially intended to make an effort to avoid divorce if you had apologized and come clean during your hospitalization. Regrettably, you never showed any remorse. Instead, you treated me terribly." Remember how we had drawn up divorce papers shortly after getting married? I had never thought we would actually use them, but today I submitted those papers. As a result, we are no longer married. Goodbye. With that weight lifted off my shoulders, I departed from the somber and quiet hospital. I felt a sense of liberation, having finally released the pent-up resentment I had been carrying. However, my mother was profoundly shocked when she learned the truth. She not only grappled with the revelation of my sister's infidelity, but also the burden of caring for her now physically disabled daughter all by herself. While I had severed ties with John and Mary, I couldn't leave my mother to handle everything on her own. So I reached out to the person responsible for the accident, offered my apologies, and requested compensation for my sister, who had been inadvertently involved in the accident. This was to ease my mother's burden. 2 years have passed since then. My husband and I are divorced, and I am living independently. During my marriage, Joan and I were considered a close couple, so my divorce came as a surprise to my coworkers. Following the divorce, more and more men approached me, seeking advice. I assumed it was a phase where divorced women suddenly appeared appealing to men. However, the memory of my ex-husband lingered in my mind, and I couldn't bring myself to date again. Instead, I focused on studying for a certification exam to advance my career. I'd even enrolled in an online business school that I could attend after work. It was something I had never imagined doing while married. I had never envied my sister's career-oriented lifestyle, nor did I ever aspire to one. Yet here I was naturally pursuing it. Life is indeed unpredictable. In the meantime, my ex-husband returned to his parents' home but was regarded as a burden by his family. His relatives held him accountable for his past behavior and the way he had treated me. I heard that he was not in a good mental state and had been causing trouble for those around him through violent outbursts. My sister also returned to our parents' house but continued to struggle with mental health issues, displaying selfish behavior. My mother was exhausted and had used my sister's savings and accident compensation to place her in a care facility. Although she had consulted me beforehand, I saw no reason to oppose her decision. Had I not taken action at that time, I would have been enslaved to both of them for the rest of my life. The thought sends shivers down my spine. I successfully passed the certification exam I had aimed for and was transferred to a department where I could put my skills to good use. I also developed a close relationship with the teacher from the online business school, and we are soon to be married. I am entering this new chapter not with just anyone who is kind to everyone, but with someone who is exceptionally kind to me. Whenever I arrive home late from work, he is there, having returned early to prepare dinner for us. I hold on to this small happiness and offer my wishes to the stars as I hurry back home to the partner who eagerly awaits my return.